Hello, friends. Hollywood in its golden age glimmered with charm, power, and perfect smiles, but behind those dazzling spotlights lay secrets too dangerous to share. In an era when studios dictated every move of their stars, image was everything. Men were expected to embody the ultimate symbols of strength and desire. And women had to be the flawless fantasy. You can be gay, insiders whispered, just don't get caught. That unspoken rule forced many of Hollywood's most beloved actors into double lives. Complete with staged romances and marriages of convenience. The silver screen was their stage. But so was their real life, only the roles were far more complicated. Beneath the tuxedos and red carpets, there were stories of forbidden love, quiet heartbreak, and quiet courage. This is the hidden reality of old Hollywood, and the untold truth about 15 stars who lived in the shadows of their own fame. Marlon Brando, the rebel who loved without labels. Marlon Brando wasn't just a movie star, he was the storm that shattered Hollywood's idea of masculinity. Brooding, magnetic, and dangerously handsome, Brando became the symbol of raw passion through a streetcar named Desire and the Wild One. But beyond his smoldering gaze and rebellious persona, he carried a truth that Hollywood wasn't ready for. Behind the camera, Brando lived freely, loving both men and women with the same unapologetic intensity he brought to his roles. While he publicly married 3 women, whispers surrounded his private life, romantic ties with James Dean, Richard Pryor, Montgomery Clift, and the brilliant writer James Baldwin painted a far more complex portrait of the man. When music legend Quincy Jones casually revealed Brando's bisexual relationships, many were shocked, until Richard Pryor's widow confirmed the story. Their affair wasn't scandalous to Brando, it was simply human. He refused to be confined by society's labels or Hollywood's rigid image of desire. His rumored sadomasochistic bond with Dean and his deep emotional connection with Baldwin revealed a man endlessly searching for truth. Both in love and in art. Marlon Brando's legacy, then, isn't just about revolutionizing acting, it's about revolutionizing the freedom to love without apology. Decades before the world dared to understand. Rock Hudson, Hollywood's perfect man with a hidden heart. Rock Hudson was the dreamboat every woman adored, tall, charming, and effortlessly masculine. On screen, he embodied the perfect romantic hero in films like Pillow Talk and Magnificent Obsession. Off-screen, however, Hudson lived a very different story. One that Hollywood forced him to keep locked away. The studio built his image as the ultimate ladies' man, arranging public dates and crafting a spotless reputation. Yet, in the shadows, Hudson shared quiet relationships with men, often under the constant fear of exposure that could destroy his career overnight. When the AIDS crisis struck in the 1980s, Hudson's private truth became painfully public. His diagnosis shocked fans worldwide, not because of the disease, but because it revealed the reality he had hidden for decades. His courage in facing the world, sick yet unashamed, transformed him into something far greater than a matinee idol. He became a symbol of empathy, breaking the silence around AIDS and homosexuality in Hollywood. Rock Hudson's charm once sold fantasies, but his honesty, in the end, told the truth that changed everything. Richard Pryor, the comedian who laughed through his pain. Richard Pryor's comedy burned with truth. He could make people howl with laughter one second and leave them speechless the next. Beneath the jokes, however, was a man wrestling with his own contradictions, fearless on stage, yet deeply scarred inside. Known for his brutally honest humor about race, drugs, and sex, Pryor eventually turned that same honesty on himself. According to friends and later confirmed by his widow, Pryor had a passionate affair with Marlon Brando, a revelation that both shocked and fascinated fans. But to Pryor, it wasn't a secret worth hiding. In his rawest performances, he often hinted at a fluid sexuality and a deep need for love. No matter where it came from, behind the laughter was a soul that had been through fire, poverty, abuse, addiction, yet still found the courage to tell the truth. Richard Pryor didn't just change comedy, he redefined authenticity. He taught the world that being real, even if messy, even if painful, was far braver than being perfect. Montgomery Clift, the tragic beauty of a haunted soul. Montgomery Clift was unlike any other leading man of his era, delicate yet powerful. Tender yet tortured, with his quiet intensity in A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity. He became Hollywood's sensitive rebel, long before James Dean, but behind that haunting gaze was a man quietly breaking. Clift was deeply in love, often with men he could never fully have, trapped by the unspoken laws of his time. His friendship, and rumored romantic connection, with Elizabeth Taylor was one of the purest in Hollywood history. She protected him fiercely as he spiraled into self-destruction after a near-fatal car accident that left his face permanently changed. Pain, secrecy, and longing consumed him, yet his performances only grew more profound. Montgomery Clift didn't just act, he lived every line with his own heartbreak. His life was short, but his courage to exist authentically in a world built on lies made him immortal in ways the industry could never control. James Dean, the rebel who loved without fear. James Dean's name became a synonym for rebellion, a young man blazing across the screen with fire in his eyes and tragedy in his future. In Rebel Without a Cause, he was the voice of every lost soul searching for connection. And in life, that need ran even deeper. Dean lived fast, loved freely, and cared little for society's expectations. Beneath the leather jacket and bad boy image, he was an artist hungry for truth, not performance. His rumored relationships with both men and women, including Marlon Brando and playwright William Bast, painted a portrait of emotional chaos wrapped in quiet sensitivity. Brando reportedly kept Dean at arm's length, but Dean admired him with almost spiritual devotion. To Dean, love wasn't about gender, it was about intensity. About feeling alive. That same passion drove his acting and ultimately his self-destruction. When he died at just 24, the world mourned the loss of youth, but perhaps more deeply, it mourned the freedom he represented. James Dean never lived long enough to explain himself. But in every look, every silence, he already had. Cary Grant, the gentleman with a hidden past. Cary Grant was Hollywood elegance personified, witty, graceful, impossibly charming. On screen, he was the man every woman wanted and every man wanted to be. But off-screen, whispers followed him everywhere. For years, Grant shared a home, and a life, with actor Randolph Scott. The two posed for photographs together at their Malibu beach house, cooking, laughing, and lounging like a married couple, while the studio scrambled to deny it. Grant's 5 marriages seemed to serve one purpose: to bury the past he couldn't publicly acknowledge. Yet his humor about the rumors hinted at quiet self-acceptance. He once quipped, "Everyone wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant." That line captured the truth, that even he was playing a role created by Hollywood. Whether his love for Scott was romantic, platonic, or both, Grant lived caught between two worlds: the man he was and the myth he had to protect. Behind the tuxedo and perfect smile was a heart that wanted to belong, not to the fantasy, but to something real. Anthony Perkins, the sweet face behind the psycho. To most of the world, Anthony Perkins will always be Norman Bates, the polite, boyish killer who terrified a generation. Yet behind that haunting role was a gentle, sensitive man carrying his own quiet horror, the fear of being discovered. In a time when Hollywood erased gay men with a single rumor, Perkins lived a life of delicate balance. He had long-term relationships with men, including actor Tab Hunter, but always in secrecy. When he married photographer Barry Berenson, it shocked many who knew his past, but it wasn't deceitful. Perkins loved deeply, even if his heart had learned to hide. The tragedy of his life was not his orientation, but his need to pretend. When AIDS took him in 1992, his family revealed his diagnosis only after his death. In that silence, there was heartbreak, but also grace. Anthony Perkins never stopped being kind, never stopped loving, and never stopped searching for understanding in a world that refused to see him as he truly was. Tab Hunter, the all-American heartthrob who broke free. In the 1950s, Tab Hunter was America's golden boy, a clean-cut dream with sun-bleached hair, dazzling blue eyes, and the kind of smile that sold innocence. Every magazine cover adored him, every girl wanted him, and every studio depended on him to play the perfect straight hero. But Hollywood's favorite boy next door was living a life of constant fear. Behind that picture-perfect grin, Tab was gay, and he knew one misstep could destroy everything. When a gossip magazine nearly outed him, the studio went into panic mode, arranging fake dates with starlets to protect his image. Yet Hunter's quiet dignity never cracked. Years later, when he finally told his story in his autobiography Tab Hunter Confidential, he did so with grace, humor, and courage. He spoke openly about his love for actor Anthony Perkins, a tender relationship smothered by Hollywood's pressure. Decades after his fame faded, Tab Hunter became something far more important, a symbol of honesty and liberation. His story reminded the world that the real hero isn't the one who hides, it's the one who dares to live truthfully, no matter the cost. Spencer Tracy, the devoted lover the world never knew. Spencer Tracy was one of Hollywood's most respected actors, a man of quiet power and unmatched emotional depth. On screen, he was moral, commanding, and full of heart. Off-screen, however, his life was tangled with secrets and guilt. Though married to Louise Treadwell for decades, he maintained a lifelong affair with Katharine Hepburn, a love story that became legendary. But few knew that Tracy's emotional conflicts ran even deeper. Behind the facade of traditional masculinity, Tracy struggled with inner turmoil, his Catholic upbringing, his drinking, and rumors that his desires weren't confined to women. Those close to him hinted at complex relationships with both genders, a reality he could never publicly face. The man audiences adored for his integrity was, in truth, tormented by shame and longing. Yet, perhaps that's what made his performances so human. He carried the pain of living two lives. Spencer Tracy's story isn't one of scandal, but of quiet suffering, a reminder that even the strongest hearts can break under the weight of secrets. Raymond Burr, the detective with a life off the record. For millions, Raymond Burr was Perry Mason, the cool, brilliant defense attorney who always found the truth. In real life, though, Burr spent decades hiding his own. Studios built an elaborate fiction for him, a tragic backstory involving a dead wife and child that never existed. It was all part of the cover to protect him from Hollywood's relentless scrutiny. Privately, Burr shared his life with his partner, Robert Benavides, for over 3 decades. Together they built a vineyard, produced art, and lived in quiet happiness away from the spotlight. But publicly, Burr never acknowledged the truth, not out of shame, but out of survival. In an industry that punished authenticity, he chose silence as his shield. When he died in 1993, Benavides inherited everything, and only then did the world begin to see the full picture of Burr's life. The man who defended truth on screen had been forced to hide his own, yet his love endured longer than fame ever could. William Haynes, Hollywood's first openly gay leading man. Before Clark Gable, before Cary Grant, there was William "Billy" Haynes, the original golden boy of silent Hollywood. Handsome, witty, and effortlessly charismatic, he was one of MGM's biggest stars in the 1920s. But what made Haynes truly revolutionary wasn't just his talent, it was his refusal to lie about who he was. When the studio ordered him to end his relationship with his partner, Jimmy Shields, and marry a woman for publicity, Haynes refused. MGM promptly fired him. Hollywood expected him to fade away in disgrace. Instead, Haynes built an entirely new empire. He reinvented himself as one of the most successful interior designers in Beverly Hills, with clients that included the very same stars who once avoided him. His partnership with Shields lasted over 50 years, a quiet, steadfast love story that outlived the careers of countless others. When they both passed away, they were buried side by side, a testament to the courage of living truthfully. William Haynes didn't just survive Hollywood, he outlived it. Ramon Novarro, the silent idol silenced by tragedy. Ramon Novarro was once the Latin lover of Hollywood's dreams, the heartthrob who replaced Valentino and made audiences swoon with his dark eyes and tender smile. Yet his fame came at a cost. A devout Catholic and closeted gay man, Novarro lived a life of constant contradiction, torn between faith and identity. In private, he sought love in secret, trusting too easily in a world that punished vulnerability. In 1968, at age 69, his life ended in horror when two young men he had invited into his home brutally murdered him. Allegedly during a robbery gone wrong, the tabloids turned his death into scandal, erasing the grace of his life with cruel sensationalism. But behind the headlines was a man who spent his entire career giving beauty to others while being denied peace himself. Ramon Novarro's story is one of talent, tenderness, and tragedy, a reminder of how cruelly Hollywood treated those who dared to be different. Sal Mineo, the boy who refused to hide. Sal Mineo was Hollywood's misunderstood prodigy, sensitive, intense, and impossibly talented. He rose to fame as the troubled teen in Rebel Without a Cause, earning an Oscar nomination alongside James Dean, with whom he shared a bond that went deeper than most realized. But as his career blossomed, rumors about his sexuality began to surface, and Hollywood turned its back. Unlike many before him, Sal didn't fade quietly. He took bold, challenging roles on stage and screen, embracing his truth at a time when few dared. By the 1970s, he was one of the first actors to live openly gay in the public eye, slowly rebuilding his career with integrity. But in 1976, just as his comeback began, he was murdered outside his Los Angeles home, a life cut short, once again, by senseless violence. Sal Mineo's courage to be himself, even when it cost him everything, turned him into more than just a Hollywood footnote. He became a symbol of honesty, resilience, and the enduring power of truth. George Nader, the loyal friend who chose integrity over fame. George Nader was the kind of man Hollywood loved to photograph but hated to understand. With his striking looks and gentle charm, he seemed destined to be the next big leading man of the 1950s. But when studio gossip linked him romantically to his close friend Rock Hudson, his career abruptly collapsed. In a world built on illusions, Nader refused to betray his truth or his friends. He quietly stepped back, never outing anyone, never speaking a word that might harm Hudson, even as his own opportunities vanished. Exiled from the Hollywood spotlight, Nader reinvented himself in Europe, where he found both success and peace. He lived openly with his partner, Mark Miller, for over 50 years, a love story Hollywood never told, but one far more real than any film script. Their home became a haven for friends like Hudson, who could finally breathe without the cameras watching. George Nader's life may not have been filled with Oscars or headlines, but it was filled with dignity, loyalty, and the kind of love that endures long after fame fades. Rock Hudson connection, when friendship was the only safe love. Rock Hudson's closest circle was built on quiet trust, a rare gift in the cruel ecosystem of old Hollywood. Among those who protected him most fiercely was George Nader, not for scandal, not for gossip, but for love. When Hudson's health declined, it was Nader and Miller who cared for him until the very end. In those final years, truth became the only thing that mattered. Their friendship stood as a quiet rebellion against the decades of lies they were forced to live. Hudson and Nader's bond represented something timeless, that in a world obsessed with perfection, authenticity is the bravest act of all. Their story reminds us that sometimes, love doesn't need to be romantic to be revolutionary. It simply needs to be real. Conclusion: the hidden hearts of Hollywood's golden age. Beneath the glitter of old Hollywood, the greatest performances weren't always on screen. They were in the lives of those who had to pretend. These 15 stars loved in secret, suffered in silence, and carried their truth like a shadow under the spotlight. They were bound by fear, yet united by courage, each one challenging a system that demanded masks instead of humanity. Today, their stories shine brighter than ever. Marlon Brando's defiance, Rock Hudson's vulnerability, William Haynes's integrity, and Sal Mineo's bravery remind us that authenticity outlasts artifice. The silver screen gave them fame, but their truth gave them immortality. In the end, these legends were not just actors, they were pioneers of love, freedom, and the right to exist as themselves. And that, perhaps, is the most heroic role anyone could ever play.